One, we want to change how people think about banking. We want to change how the industry works. And we want that to last. And again, at the lab, what we do, just I think to put it most succinctly, is we build things. We build lots of products. We invent new ways of thinking about our customers, but then we build solutions to service their needs. And so, how can we apply data science? Why is it important? So I'm going to go back a little bit. We have this paradox of consumer expectation, and I think we know this as consumers. So way back when, when somebody wanted to get warm, they built a fire. If somebody wanted to get around, they either walked or, eventually we domesticated animals and we got them to take us around. And that was great. And then fast forward millennia, and there are all these crazy inventions that we've come up with. We come up with layer by layer, what is now central heating. And now all we have to do is we just turn a knob on the wall. How magical is that? We don't have to build a fire anymore. And similarly, we've created automobiles. So we have these machines that we've built that take us around, increase our range, allow us to carry more things with us. But that's not enough. We keep going. And so now it's not enough to have that magical knob on the wall. Now we want the knob to think for itself. And so we just don't want to even turn the knob. And cars, those are awesome too, but can't they just drive themselves? And so very much we're living in this age in which those expectations continue to rise. They will always rise. And I think that consumer expectations are actually rising at an increasing pace, and we need to consider that. But we're also living in this age of data. So we can use data and all the power that it offers us to build better products. We can use it to better understand the needs of our users. We can use it to actually be woven into the fabric of the solutions we create. And so a lot of the focus of my group is on building data products. And specifically what we're trying to do is give our users superpowers. Give them superpowers by giving them relevant information, context, and insight. Giving them information that helps them make complex decisions more effectively. And as we do this, we want to build products that also can learn and adapt based on how they're being used. And so this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We're immersed in an environment rich, full of data products. So we have all these services available to us at our fingertips. We can go to applications like Zillow and see all around us what's going on in the real estate market. You can almost peer into anybody's house, know everything about it, know what it looks like inside, how much it costs, who else, or what other properties are like it. And we have the world's information at our fingertips. And not only do can we query all of the world's information, but Google will actually suggest things to us to look up. And we have applications like Netflix that basically learn based on our preferences, learn based on what we do, and feed recommendations to us so we don't have to think too much about what we want to do, how we want to be entertained. And so how can we apply this to banking? First, let's take a look back at what banking used to be like.
Then if you wanted money, you had to go in the bank when it was open for like 3 hours. You had to stand in line, write yourself a check like an idiot. And then when you ran out of money, you just go, well, I can't do any more things now. I can't do any more things.
That's it, yeah.
That was it. And even if you had a credit card, the guy would go, ugh, and he'd bring out this whole shunk, and he'd write,
yes.
You have to call the president to see if you have any money. And
it's all true, kids. You had to call the president, yeah. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you feel that we now,
you can cut it there.
Century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah,
so for those of you who don't recognize the voice, it's Louis C.K. It's a great piece. You can look it up where he was on Conan.
Spoiled idiot.
Yes. Great. It's awesome, actually. If this talk goes bad, we'll just put that back on. But there's something, it's really funny. Obviously, that's not the way things are now, but it wasn't that long ago that that's what banks were like, right? So you walk into your local branch, which is only open a few hours a day. You have to carry cash around because if you can't get to the bank, then you need cash. You wait in these ridiculous teller lines. You write yourself a check. All these things are terribly inconvenient. right? But that was way back then, right? And things are better, right? So now we have, in almost a ubiquitous way, something that didn't exist actually, a few decades ago. We have credit cards that, save us from really, carrying around cash. We have checks, we have electronic funds transfer, we have Bitcoin, we have all sorts of things. We don't have to wait in teller lines. We can do a lot of our banking through ATMs or online. Banks are a little bit of a thing of the past as far as why you go to them. So everything's good, right? But it's not. And while I think there are a lot of reasons why people are unhappy with banks, and I'm not going to talk about all of them here, I do think that we're a victim of the same set of rising expectations that every other area of every other industry is affected by. So people are unhappy with banks. People don't trust them, but also people just don't like the inconvenience of them. And I think they forget how far we've come as a society. So how can data help us? And what's next for banking? So I'm not going to talk about all of it, but I did want to talk about some of the types of problems we're trying to solve and also what we've done to solve them. And while I won't go into the technical details, there's a lot of data science behind all of the things that I'm sharing here. So problem number one is that we still expect, and we in a collective sense, I think, as a financial services industry, we expect consumers to speak our language. We present them with documents like this. This is a mocked up statement. We present them with legalese and lots of documents, and it's confusing, it's overwhelming. And we expect people to understand that. If you talk to consumers who have a bank account or credit card account, the number one thing they're looking for when they look at their statement is they just want to scan it quickly and see if there's anything wrong. And I would say that this sort of view doesn't really help them do that. So one of the things, first things my team did when we joined Capital One was we built a back-end service called Enhanced Transactions. It actually was something that was polished up from some work we had done at Bundle, where we work with billions of transactions, and we're able to enrich those transactions with more information. So we take things that aren't regularly available with transactions the way they come into banks, and we enrich them with clean merchant names. We connect them with retailers so that we can take things like logos and other visual cues and make them available. And we also take information like geolocation and use that to provide more detail when consumers want it. We attach things like phone numbers even when they're not associated with the transactions when they come through. And this way, somebody can look at their statement and instead of seeing that paper ledger view, they can quickly scan and spend less time actually looking at the statement and really honing in on what matters to them. But that wasn't enough for us. That was just the beginning. And so what we wanted to do next was take on this challenge of information overload. So the other problem with things like statements is, statements like every other area of our lives, they're just more information. And we do live in the age of data. Part of that is, as consumers, we're overwhelmed with the data presented to us. Too much information, too much choice. What if we could take patterns of information? So this is just a graphical view of somebody's transactions. So a real customer, their interactions with a particular merchant over time and by dollar value. You can, I don't know if you can see any patterns from this, but it's a little bit hard. It looks like noise. But there are, in fact, signals that we can pick up within noisy data, noisy information. And by doing that on behalf of our customers, we can actually create useful insights and make those available to them, saving them the trouble of doing that themselves. And so we launched another product this year called Second Look. And so Second Look is not just one set of insights, it's a whole platform for creating insights that we can surface to customers anytime there's unusual activity in their accounts, not just fraud, but anything that looks funny, including simple things like double swipes, when it appears that somebody has accidentally been charged twice for the same thing. We also will infer things like generous tips or generous tipping in a way that seems unusual. So you're tipping way above your average, you may want to take a look at this. And more importantly, it's a whole platform for creating algorithmically and model-driven insights about spending patterns that warrant a second look. But even more fundamentally, I think we struggle with this, this challenge of information overload. And so we have lots and lots of data available within Capital One about our customers. We interact with them through many different channels. They can call us, and when they call us, they go through the automated system. They talk to all sorts of different agents whose jobs are slightly different. They interact with us online. They interact with us through multiple mobile applications. There are lots of interactions that we have with them. And then there's just all this information we have about their accounts, about who they are, about what they want to do, about their balances, transactions. And so this view that you see here is what a typical agent might look at when they're dealing with a customer. And it's real. They're working through about a dozen different systems at any given time to get information about what's going on with a single account holder. There's information that's from core banking systems. There are research tools that they have, and they're keeping notes over here, doing all sorts of things. We get overwhelmed as well with the type of information that we have. And so it makes it really hard to have an authentic relationship with a customer. It also makes it hard to relate to them. And so this is another product that my team has developed that's in pilot now. It's an internal application, so customers will never see this. This is designed around a specific set of agents and their problems and what they're trying to do. And I'd say this is probably the least data science-y of the problems that we work on. But at the same time, this actually all started with a funny story. So we were actually trying to solve a much more sophisticated problem. We were trying to take all of that information that we have about customer interactions, and we're trying to use that to infer what makes a difference in driving customer satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And that seems like a really simple problem to frame. It's a really hard problem to solve, and in part we found that there are two main challenges. One was getting the data all together. And as simple as that sounds, just trying to pull data from dozens of different systems that are coming in at different paces and different formats, some that are tied with accounts, some tied with customers, some tied with nothing at all. Linking that all together and coming up with a clean view was a real challenge. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And then we realized that actually we have no insight to answer that question. We think we know what drives customer satisfaction or dissatisfaction, but do we have any real insight about what's going on? And so we built a tool for ourselves that was a really rudimentary view of a customer account. And out of that view, we started sharing it with some other people, and before we knew it, there were all these people who were saying, actually, I would love that same view for problem X or problem Y. And so then we set off to actually build an application and an underlying platform to help us do that. And so this is a product called Customer Journeys. It's, as I said, in pilot now. We designed it for agents, and what we have here is an interactive visual interface for really scanning all this information. This is the information for a single account. And while it, I'd say there's probably a mix of reactions that you may have. Some of you may view this as very intuitive. Some of you may view this as really overwhelming. But what we did was we took all of the most relevant information that agents, in sitting side by side with them, were observing how they work. We took all of the relevant information that they were asking for to solve specific tasks, and we designed with them this interface. So this is something that makes sense for them, even if it might not make sense for some of you. So there's, in one view, for a single account, you can see all sorts of summary details. You can see all of the interactions, which are in that middle swim lane there, whether it was online, through different digital interfaces, in a branch. And on the bottom, you see account history in the form of balances. And on the bottom, you can see a pattern of transactions, payments, and other important things. And then you can zoom in and get more information. So, just to wrap up, I think that, as I said, this isn't a technical talk. It wasn't meant to be, how do each of these products work? I'm happy to talk more about it. We also work on a whole range of problems that I didn't talk about here that are more true to the core of Capital One and its history immersed in data analytics and modeling for the purpose of doing things like making core credit decisions, who to lend to and how. And then also things like marketing and other sophisticated modeling problems. So a lot of what my team does, though, is we take a particular view of that. So we don't try to solve the same problems in the same way. We've tried to really embrace the advances in technology and new methods born in software engineering, where we try to really automate everything. We try to systematize everything and really get ourselves to a place where we can learn as quickly as possible and adapt as quickly as possible. I'll call it here and take questions if there are any.
Hi, thank you. I just opened a Capital One credit card, actually, online, and it took 2 letters and a phone call and a fax to do that. So maybe you could look at that. But my question is, when it comes to things like fraud detection and credit scores, one of the problems is that as soon as something is measured in a formalized way, it becomes possible to exploit it. So if you set the threshold for if you'll spend 20% more to merchant, then that signals fraud. A fraudulent merchant will charge 19% more. So how do you plan to make that balance between being transparent with what your underlying mechanisms are doing to customers and not allowing them to be exploited?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think fraud is particularly thorny. So we are working on a set of problems around fraud right now. And what we've realized about it, much to my earlier point just a minute ago, it's a really adaptive problem. It's a space where, the challenge you're describing is absolutely right. And generally speaking, there isn't a lot of transparency around, what I showed around Second Look is different than fraud. We have a lot of sophisticated fraud defenses. The industry has built up a whole bunch of methods for detecting and preventing fraud that aren't available, generally. And that's for a reason. It's to avoid this problem where fraudsters see that published information and then just immediately work around it. But the more pressing challenge around fraud is that fraudsters are immensely innovative themselves. And so we're not talking about one-off individuals. They're really sophisticated fraud rings, organized people working together, exploiting technology and data themselves to come up with ever increasingly sophisticated methods for taking advantage of people and financial institutions. And so I think the key to that challenge is being more adaptive ourselves. So it's not about building a model now that's used for the next 6 months or 6 years. It's about building an interaction model with our fraud investigators, with other institutions, with government agencies to really be able to take the latest information about what's going on and feed that immediately into our fraud defenses. And getting to that point where those things are updated, if necessary, daily to keep up. Yep.
Hi, I'm curious about the customer reaction to the Second Look. Thank you. Hello. I'm curious about the customer reaction to the Second Look process. I can think about it going in one of 2 ways. I mean, if you told me that I spent an exorbitant amount last month, I might feel bad about that. I might want to change my behavior, or I might just find it like, why would you? I enjoyed the meal. Why bring up the check?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of feedback you've received from that in terms of verbatims, or not exactly verbatims, of course, but sentiment. And then additionally, what kind of, how have you seen customers react in terms of their engagement with the product after you gave them that sort of feedback?
So that's a great question, and it's so very much baked into all of the products that we've developed, including Second Look. There's been a discovery process where we actually do a lot of exploration. We talk to consumers, including our own customers, and we try things out. And so one of the things we actually tested was before Second Look was a product, we just started asking customers what types of insights they were interested in. And we surfaced things like, do you want recommendations from us on where you should go? Or do you want information about how you're spending relative to a budget or relative to peers? And overwhelmingly, they said no to pretty much everything, other than this area of guardianship. They want to feel protected. And so that's what we focused on. And we didn't try to boil the ocean there. So we actually had a whole bunch of specific things that people were asking for. Certain types of guardianship insights. And so that's what we really built Second Look around. So right now it's a small collection of really robustly tested insights that we can make available at scale to all of Capital One's roughly 60 million customers. And then going forward, I think the plan again is to build on that platform and keep improving it with more insights. But we don't want to overwhelm our customers. We don't want them to, or we don't want to surface information that's not relevant to them. And so we're going to keep testing our way there as well. So, great. I think my time's up. I will be around for a little bit. Thank you very much.